Hello hobby friends, thanks for joining me here today on Level Up Hobbies. I'm Jason and I'm going to show you how to paint white scars for your Age of Darkness Legion. Let's get painting.
Okay, to start off with this guy, we're going to prime him black. For this I just used some Vallejo black surface primer, and really you could use any type of surface primer. I went with black because I wanted to leave some darker shaded areas, on the lower parts of the model underneath, just so it looked more shadowy. But you don't need to use black. You could use gray, or you could use a white primer. And now I start laying down the base color for the armor. For that I'm going to be using Corax White. And I chose this because it's an off-white, and you can highlight up from this without it being the brightest white on the armor. And as I'm spraying this on here, I'm trying to get pretty good coverage, but I'm leaving some shadowy areas just under the arms, under the legs. Like you can see under like the exhaust ports on the backpack, just where it kind of grays out, but it doesn't go completely black. And I wanted that because this is going to be kind of a brightly lit model. I don't want it to look like it's in darkness, so most of the armor color, the medium, the main color it's going to be a brighter white. So go ahead and get this covered, and then we'll move on to the next step. And now we're going to start laying in the first shade of the armor. For this I am using Fenrisian gray, and I thinned this down to a very thin glaze consistency using Vallejo glazing medium. And I want this to be very translucent, so it's not overpowering, and I'm panel lining all of the armor with this. I'm not worried about staying right inside those panel lines. I can get out a little bit. I want this to be a wider shade that kind of leads into the final darker shade of panel line. So go ahead and paint this in. Don't worry about getting it outside of those lines, because this is light enough that you can go back in with that Corax white and touch up any of those spots that you might slip out on. And here we're moving on to the second layer of shade in the armor. And for this I'm using thinned down Sombre gray from Vallejo Game Color. And again, I thin this down to a glaze consistency and just lightly paint this into all of the panel lines. Make sure you use a very sharp brush for this one, because this one is less forgiving if you get outside of those lines, and you want to make sure that you're just getting that tip and just putting it down in that panel line. Again, Corax white does have good coverage, so you can go back in and touch up where it's needed, but I would take your time at this point and just try to have as few errors as possible if you can. I have a number on this model alone where I had to go back and touch it up with the Corax white, and it worked out pretty good. And I wanted to say that I am going for, as you can see, a cool white with this armor. You could also go the direction of going like a warm white, and for that, for the Fenrisian gray, I would substitute something like maybe even like a contrast like Skeleton Horde for that first layer, and then you can move up to something as dark as like Rhinox hide for that deeper recess. But just make sure you thin that down to a very thin glaze so it's not overpowering and over the top, and that will give you a really nice warmer color to the white, as opposed to this gray, this cooler white that I'm going for.
Hey guys, quick interruption. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe down below. And while you're at it, leave a comment or share the video with some friends. All of this goes a long way to helping out the channel. Thanks guys, let's get back to painting.
And here we are with the panel lines complete. I'm going to go back in here with some Corax white and touch up like I said. There's just a couple spots you can see, like on the exhaust panel there's a little spot there, on the helmet there's a little spot, and I just thinned the Corax white down just so I can kind of glaze it over. And if it takes a couple coats, that's fine. I would not put it on full coverage just because with this being airbrushed on here, the opacity is not going to be as strong as it is like straight out of the pot. All right, now let's paint this weapon. For this I used some Vallejo Game Color Black, and I just coated the entire thing. If you look at, firearms right now, they're usually all one color. I chose not to, break out and just highlight different parts of the gun in a gunmetal. Just because I think this looks like a very nice streamlined look for this. This ends up taking about 2 coats because I thinned it out, but it does go on really, really well, and it has a nice finishing once it's done. Now, along with the gun, I took that opportunity to paint in his straps and the underlayment of the armor, the rubber, like the undersuit that he's wearing. So all of that is also black, and it's really starting to come together here. So what I'm going to do now is go in and start picking out some details to be red, that other just pop of color that the White Scars are known for. For this, I am using Khorne Red, and I am just picking out right here the left knee, just painting it, totally red. I'm doing this thin down so it doesn't get blotchy on me, and I make sure that I go through and I get the entire thing in one coat before it starts to dry. Otherwise, with red over white, you can really start to get some tide marks, and it's just it doesn't look good if you don't do it quick and do it fairly precise. But yeah, so started with this knee, and I just start picking out other parts of the model to add that red detail to. Now you can see that I picked out a couple more details with that red, one being the skull symbol on the helmet, and the other being his right knee pad. I added some diamond, triangle patterns to this, just to kind of accentuate the more tribal aspect of their legion. Not really sure if it means much or not, but oh well. Now I'm going to add some highlights to the red using Cadian Fleshtone. And for this, I decided to go with the flesh tones over like an orange. I don't know. I just prefer the flesh tones. I think it adds a much more realistic highlight to the red, and it's not over the top like some of those oranges can be. So yeah, Cadian flesh tone, and I just thinly added it to build up those highlights on the upper edges and stuff, and added some like dings and nicks like over the red panels. And I start highlighting the black using the Sombre gray, and just the side of my brush I just hit all of the edges of the bolt gun, and then making sure that I have a nice sharp tip, I'll go in and get the ribbed edges of the bodysuit like behind the knees and stuff. And now we finally go in and we start highlighting up the armor itself using Ceramite white. Now this is a very bright white with good coverage, and it really stands out against the Corax white, which is almost like a gray compared to the Ceramite white. But I go in, I do like a nice hard edge highlight on most of the armor. I'll, put a little bit of taps, some nicks, some scratches across the shoulder pads and the large sections of like the legs, just to add a little bit of texture to that armor. Now, a simple way to tackle the lenses here is make sure that there's a nice even coat of Corax white on the lenses, and then I take Ultramarines Blue contrast paint and just flood that lens with the color. When that's dry, I'll go back in and just touch up any edge that I need to with the Corax white, and if I need to add more blue, I can just flood just the tip of your brush, just flood that with a little bit more color. Once that's dry, I just give it a nice dot of white for the highlight at the rear of the lens. Now I'm going to apply some transfers to the shoulder pads. This step isn't required if you don't have them, but I had some, so I figured what the hell. So I applied the transfer, and then I used some microsol and just painted it on and let it sit there for a couple minutes to soften up that decal. And then once it had softened up, I took a bit of paper towel and I just pressed it firmly against the decal. I didn't slide it back and forth. I just pushed it down and then pressed my thumb down on it to apply pressure. And that makes that decal really adhere to the surface. Once that had dried, I then took microset and did the same thing. Brushed it on and just let it sit there and soften up that decal. And this helps it sit down onto any surfaces. Again, I pressed a paper towel down on it, and it makes almost like a permanent bond between that decal and the surface. For the squad marking, I didn't have a red shoulder pad that kind of fit the White Scars, so I used a white one, and then I painted it over with some matte medium, let that dry, and then I just took the same Khorne Red and just painted in that symbol using the decal as basically a stencil. And here we have the completed model. I painted the lip of the base black, and then I used some Geek Gaming Scenics Arid Earth mix for the basing of the model. All in all, I think this model turned out great. The red on white just really pops, and it's a fairly dynamic color scheme on the battlefield. A whole army of these, like in combination, different markings and everything, would look pretty damn awesome. But yeah, this was a fun model to paint. I would like to paint up a model like this using the warm white color scheme that I spoke of earlier, and just kind of compare the two and see which looks better. But really, in the end, it's a matter of taste. If you like the cool whites, go with the cool white. If you like the warm whites, go with that. But yeah, so thanks for watching. And if you got any comments, please leave them down below. Any suggestions, ideas, otherwise. I will see you guys next time.
Thanks for joining me today as I painted this White Scar for your Age of Darkness Legion. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a like and subscribe down below. Don't forget to leave a comment and share this video with friends. Thanks again, and remember, build, paint, and play tabletop games. Later, guys.